Hi and welcome to a very cool iOS and Swift development beginners tutorial. Well, when you're at the point where you've just downloaded Xcode and wanted to try the new programming language, Swift, and have no experience with Objective-C so far, then this tutorial is going to help you explore the great world of iOS development. So we're going to develop a very simple to-do list application in this tutorial, and we're going to see how easy it is to use Xcode and Interface Builder to create the user interface for your app and connect it with the code that runs all the logic. So the app that we're going to create looks like this. It consists of a table view controller. This is actually called a table view controller. It displays a table with a number of cells. We have this navigation bar at the top where we have a plus button. When we click on it, we get to an add item view controller. It is every element, every view that can be displayed in as a whole screen is called a view controller. It controls all the subviews, for example, the label that we have got here or the text field. So this is actually a label, and there we have a text field. When we click on it, the keyboard automatically pops up and we can enter a title for our to-do, make tutorial. And here we've got another label and a so-called text view, which allows us to write multiple lines of text because this is a node. And I can say, well, to do app and interface builder. This is what I'm going to talk about in this tutorial. So these are my nodes, and I press done, and my my tutorial, make tutorial to do is placed into this table. When I click on it, I get to another view controller, which shows me the to do item, but I can't make changes anymore. All I can do is delete it. So let me go ahead and create another to do. Let me just call it to do 2. My nodes, let's say, blah, blah, done. And now you see I've got my second to-do item. I can again click on it, and when I click on the trash can, I can remove it from my table, and I've completed my to-do. So how are we going to do that? It's pretty simple, actually. So let's start Xcode, and let's first create a new Xcode project. And so that you can see how everything is done from the ground up, I'm not going to use a single view application or master detail application, which will give you some templates to work with, which is actually easy, but you don't understand how to actually build a project from the ground up. So let's start with an empty project, and let's call our app to-do app. You can enter a organization name here. You can enter a organization identifier with a reverse domain name. You can also choose your language, which is Swift, of course, and you can select which kind of devices you want to support with your app. So choose iPad if you want to develop a iPad app by its own, which is which sometimes you have to do, and the same with iPhone or universal, so that both platforms, iPhone and iPad, are supported by your app. We're going to keep it simple and just select iPhone, and we don't use core data, which is a great database technology. And if you want to learn more about it, check out my videos. There's a cool series about using core data and database management in iOS and macOS, and check it out if you need to do something related to databases. So let's say next, and it asks us now to save it somewhere. We'll choose the desktop and create. We do not want to create a Git repository at the moment, but Git repository will help you if you want to do source control and save different versions of your app and compare different versions, but we won't do that for now. So create. And now we've got an empty application, which we're going to fill in a moment. We will not adjust anything here right now. First, you must understand that the way you build a user interface is by creating storyboards. A storyboard is really cool, so we will go into our in our document section here, which is called Project Navigator. And in the Project Navigator, we will create a new storyboard. You can press Command N on the keyboard or choose File, New File. And here we've got different types of files that we can select, like Cocoa Touch class, which we'll be doing in a minute, Objective-C, if you still want to write Objective-C code, and of course user interface. And we will create a storyboard, and you will see what it is about storyboards in a second. So let's create one for the device family iPhone, say next, and now it's important that you always check this targets to do app, because this adds the storyboard to your app. And this checkbox must be checked, and we'll just call it storyboard, and say create, and that's it. And now we've got an empty storyboard. And now you can see on the right side here that we have different kinds of objects that we can choose from. Let's say a view controller, a table view controller. What else do we have? A label, a button, segmented control. These are all the classes available in UIKit that you can choose from to create your unique user interface. So we will start with a table view controller, because as you can see here, we have a table view that displays different cells. So we will choose a table view controller. And you see that there is no table so far displayed, but there is a prototype cell. And if we bring up the document outline, we can see a little more what's going on here. So we have a table view controller, we have a table view placed within it, and we have a table view cell, which can be customized. But this is actually the one cell like this that is displayed again and again, because all cells within a table view controller are reused. And that makes it important for us to check this cell out and set a so-called reuse identifier within the attribute inspector. So let's call this reuse identifier cell, and we're going to use this reuse identifier later in the code to reuse one single cell. I will explain that in more detail. For now, let's just focus on creating our user interface. All right. This is the first step. I've just done this right now so that I do not forget about it later. We will now embed this table view controller within a navigation controller. And the navigation controller is actually what's doing this stuff here, because we don't have to write any code for transitioning between those views and going back. That's pretty cool. So let's get to it, and we just have to select this table view controller, say editor, embed in navigation controller. And you see now we have a navigation controller, and you also maybe have noticed that this arrow has now moved from here to here, because this is now our initial view controller. And our initial view controller is now this navigation controller, which handles all this this navigation stuff, this transitioning between different view controllers. So we've got now this table view controller, and you see that we have got a navigation bar at the top of it automatically. And that's pretty cool. Now, when we check our app again, you see that we want to have an add button here. So let's write bar button into this into the objects library, and select the bar button item and drag it to the navigation controller at the top. Now, to the navigation bar at the top. Now again, we can just select it and in the attributes inspector change the identifier to add. and we will automatically get a plus. So now when we click on the plus sign, what's going to happen? Well, we get another view controller which displays a bunch of other information. So let's create a new view controller. So let's delete that and add a view controller. So there it is. Place it right here. And this view controller will contain some other UI elements like a label, another label, a text field, and a text view. So let's do that. Right, label here, which we will double click on it and change its text property to item title. Let's then add a text field. Drag it to the view controller, make it a bit greater in width, something like that. Place it directly under our item label, move them a bit to the left, and you see you get these great guidelines to see where you can place it, where you can place your UI elements so that they conform to the user interface guidelines by Apple. And now let's just copy this label, copy and paste, place it here and say item notes. And let's add a text view right here. Same width, a little bit greater this direction, more or less here. So, and let's enter add your notes here. All right. Now that you've seen how to add some user interface elements, you maybe have noticed that we've got this navigation control and this navigation bar even when we click on the plus sign, but there is no navigation control, no navigation bar yet. So, as I told you, it is really cool to that we don't have to write some of this code that transitions from one view controller to another. And what makes it possible actually is called segues. And we're going to use a segue to transition between our master view controller here, or master table view controller here, to this add view controller, if you want to call it that way. So let's press the control button on your keyboard, select this this plus sign, press control, and just drag with your mouse over to this view controller. And it will ask you to create a action segue, and we will select push. And you see automatically we got this navigation bar at the top, and we see that we have to move our items a little bit down to make it look better. And that's it. Now we already have completed that, and all we have to do now is add another bar button item at the right corner here and say done. So we can click on it again, go to our attributes inspector and select done. That's it. Cool. Now that we have created this first view controller, first detail view controller, we'll create the second one, another view controller, which will be displayed when we click on a to-do item. This is this one here, and in this view controller, we can actually we have the same interface elements, but we cannot edit them, and we have a trash can here to delete the to-do item. So let's add this other view controller. And copy those items, paste them here, arrange them. All right. And now, again, we won't have to write any code to achieve this transition here. So again, we will create a segue called when we click on a table view cell. So again, we will just press Control on our keyboard and click and drag from the table view cell to this view controller and say selection, segue, and push. And again, we get the navigation bar at the top, and we can again search for a bar button here, bar button item, and place it here, select it, and choose the trash identifier, so we get this cool trash can. And that's actually all we have to do to design our user interface. That's pretty cool. All right, now that we have completed our user interface and our storyboard is ready, let's add it actually to our project, because when we run our app now, we'll see nothing. There is actually no table view controller. There's just empty white space, and that is because we have to go to our app delegate.swift file. This is the entry point for your application, and when your application is started, there is one function that is called, and it's called did finish launching with options. And actually what's done here is that in the empty application template that we have chosen when we've created this project, it automatically generated an empty window for us. So let's go ahead and delete that code from the did finish launching with options function, but just here until here. All right. So this actually, again, is the entry point for your application. And if you want to do something right before, right when the app is opened, then place it here. And now we have to do some adjustments to our project. So let's click on this to-do app project and select a main interface, which is located in the storyboard. And let's say we will just support portrait design or device orientation, and actually that's it. And if we run our application now, we see our table view controller. When we click plus, we get to our add view controller. When we click back, you see no line of code required, and we already have a cool user interface. But we cannot yet click on a table view cell because there is no data displayed in it. So we'll come to that in a minute. To actually use our view controllers that we have created in our storyboard, we have to write some classes which will control them. And this is really simple in Swift, also in Objective-C, but even simpler using Swift. So we will click on the app delegate.swift file, create a new class using file new file, and we will now choose source from iOS, and we will create a Cocoa Touch class. And this first Cocoa Touch class will be our master view controller. So I will call it master, and it will be a subclass of UI table view controller. And notice that the name is automatically completed. So we'll create a subclass of UI table view controller and call it master table view controller, and say next, also again important that you select this targets checkbox and create. And now we have a new Swift class, a new Swift file, which contains already all important information that we are going to use to create our table view. And to connect our interface with the class here, we will select our table view controller, select the view controller, open the, what's it called? The utilities pane, and now select the identity inspector. And there we can add our custom class that will control this view controller. And our class is called Master Table UIViewController. All right, now they're connected. So let's do the same stuff with the other controllers. We will create, and notice that I always click on the file, which will be on top of the newly created class. So if I now click this one and I say we will now want a UIViewController, and this is going to be the add-ViewController. Next, create. Then this file is created at the bottom of the one I selected. So let's go back to the storyboard, select this add-ViewController, can click on this symbol to select a ViewController, or on this symbol, and again add the class name, and this is add-ViewController. And now let's do the same thing for the last one, and I will call this detail-ViewController, because it gives us details about the about our to-do items. So this is also a subclass of UIViewController. Say next and create. That's it. Go back to the storyboard, click on this ViewController and say detail ViewController. All right. Now that we have created all the classes needed to control our user interface, we will start writing our first pieces of code. And we will start with the actually with the master ViewController, because this is the entry point now of our application. So I think this wraps it up for this tutorial. You have created a user interface, you've created all the necessary classes, and in the next tutorial we're going to write all the code to make this application work. So stay tuned and see you in the next tutorial.